The spark before the storm. Lillian Moore smiled as she adjusted the collar of her environmental suit. The synthetic fabric hissed as it sealed around her neck, the material shimmering under the bioluminescent glow of the Zari delegation hall. She looked human, just human enough to unsettle them. She liked that. The Zari didn't understand smiles. Not really. They cataloged it as a nonverbal signal indicating mild dominance or satisfaction. They didn't know that Lillian smiled because she found beauty in impossible places. She stood on a dais made of living resin, surrounded by towering insectoid forms that clicked softly in their own language. One of them, Ambassador Tsex, extended a spined limb in what passed for greeting. The Terran representative is acknowledged, Tsex said through its translator, voice filtered and mechanical. Your presence is statistically disruptive. Lillian bowed slightly. That's often true, but I'll take that as progress. She heard murmurs behind her, her diplomatic aide, a young lieutenant, suppressing a laugh. Even now, with danger coiled in the air like static, she could find humor in the alien theater of it all. Her voice, her jokes, even her posture, it was all deliberate. This was how humans made first contact work, not through dominance, but through presence. She didn't notice the figure in the shadows. Later, they would tell stories, conspiracies, and cover-ups. But none of them would see the moment for what it truly was. Not political, not strategic, just a choice. A quiet one. A claw, narrow, bladed, efficient, slipped through the gap in her armor with surgical precision. One strike, one breath stolen. Lillian collapsed without a word. The room erupted in movement, guards flooding forward, translators blaring confused orders, and biological lights dimming into chaos. The Zari didn't panic. They calculated. And they calculated that Lillian Moore, human xenobiologist and peace envoy, had just been removed from the equation. No one cried. Not yet. 6 hours later, the transmission reached Earth. The Terran diplomatic corps fell silent as the report played. A still image of Lillian's body, untouched since the moment she fell, flashed on the screen. The Zari claimed it was an error in coordination, the fault of a rogue drone acting beyond its algorithmic role. There were formal words. Appeals. Apologies woven from polite data. None of it mattered. In a quiet lab in Montana, Marcus Moore stood over a soil printer, calibrating nanofiber sequences for a self-sustaining algae field. He didn't hear the door open. He didn't look up until his terminal pinged. The message was short. Lillian Moore, deceased. Incident, Zari Prime. Awaiting diplomatic review. Marcus stared at it. The printer kept humming, unaware. He didn't scream, didn't punch the wall. Instead, he reached out, slowly, and turned the machine off. The silence filled the room like smoke. He whispered, "You promised me you'd come home." A knock came at the door. He didn't answer it. A voice followed, low, careful, familiar. "We're calling her death. Accidental." That's the official line. But off the record, they executed her. Marcus turned. General Elena Yao stepped into the lab, eyes heavy with history. She had once commanded Marcus, had once told him he was too dangerous to be left in the field. Now she looked at him the way people look at sleeping dragons. He didn't speak. "We won't retaliate," she said. "Too many variables. War would cost billions, maybe trillions. Peace is delicate. Still nothing." Yao stepped forward, voice softer now. "She wanted peace, Marcus. You of all people know that." He nodded. Then quietly, "I do." She waited a beat too long, then turned to leave. At the door, she paused. "I know what you're capable of. I hope you remember who she was." Marcus looked down at his hands, hands that had once dismantled empires. "She was kind," he said. Yao left. He stood alone in the dark. Outside, the wind stirred the dust across the plains. Marcus Moore picked up Lillian's old satchel, still marked with Terran science insignia. Inside it, a folded hollow photo of the two of them at Yellowstone. She was laughing. He slipped it into his coat. And for the first time in years, Marcus smiled. But it wasn't kind. The cost of a smile. The stars above Jupiter Station gleamed like indifferent eyes. Marcus Moore stood inside Docking Bay 9, watching as a Terran Scout-class vessel powered down. It was a blunt, ugly thing, like a predator trying to pretend it was a cargo hauler. He liked it instantly. He hadn't shaved. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 4 days. But now it was time. A woman stepped off the ramp, armored boots ringing on metal. Short, sharp all angles. Cora Vance, ex-UN drop assault, dishonorably discharged for punching a diplomatic envoy during peace talks on Altus 4. She held out her hand. You said the job was suicidal. It is. Good. I hate retirement. A second figure emerged behind her. Armin Jex, former military AI architect. His mind was a symphony of glitches and genius after a prototype neural uplink burned out half his frontal lobe. He smiled like he'd already seen the end of the story and found it hilarious. Tell me we're going after bugs, he said. Marcus nodded. The Zari. Armin's grin widened. I'm in. They gathered in the shadows. One by one, the broken pieces of humanity sharpened themselves into weapons. Each had their reasons: loss, betrayal, debts unpaid. And at the center of them stood Marcus, not asking for loyalty or trust, just silence and resolve. They met in the hull of a derelict Martian ice hauler, a ghost ship Marcus had personally converted into a stealth skirmisher. No name on the registry. No beacon. Just dark metal, cold purpose. I'm not here to start a war, Marcus told them. The Alliance won't support this. They've buried Lillian under layers of diplomacy and denial. He paced, voice measured but tight. The Zari think they erased her with one move. A precise incision in the softest spot of the Terran line. He stopped, looked each of them in the eye. They're about to find out what happens when you cut too deep. Cora snorted. You're not giving a mission briefing. You're making a funeral speech. Marcus met her gaze. I am. The crew prepped in silence. Marcus ran simulations. Armin fine-tuned the ship's neuroreactive systems. Cora inventoried weapons with a reverent coldness. Others filtered in: smugglers, linguists, rogue diplomats. All ghosts of former lives. At night, Marcus listened to Lillian's voice logs, entries from her time aboard the embassy. Her thoughts were full of curiosity and empathy, even when the Zari ignored or mocked her. They don't understand fear the way we do, she said in one recording. But they know when they've made a mistake. They just don't know how bad it is yet. The last entry ended with laughter. Soft, genuine. It cut deeper than any blade. They launched under an illegal translite cloak, bouncing off private relays and old pirate channels. No one saw them leave. No one wanted to. 3 days into the journey, Cora cornered Marcus in the mess. She was your sister, she said. He didn't reply. Why not go to war? Burn the whole damn hive world down. Marcus set his drink down. Because that's what they'd expect. That's what they modeled for. Rage. Retaliation. He leaned in. But they never planned for grief. Cora tilted her head. You think grief makes us stronger? No, Marcus said. I think it makes us cruel. They arrived in the dead zone between Zari trade clusters, a system abandoned after a mineral collapse poisoned the suns. Perfect place for a staging ground. From orbit, Armin deployed a probe net designed to mimic Zari communication signals, specifically emotional anomalies. It was based on Lillian's research. Their empires held together by logic and probability, Armin explained. But if we inject impossible data, spontaneous grief signals, irrational spikes of empathy, it breaks their models. Cora stared at the screen. You're going to weaponize sadness? No, Marcus said. We're going to teach it. The first probe worked. A Zari diplomatic cruiser intercepted the false broadcast, a loop of Lillian's final laugh encoded in emotional resonance. Within hours, their fleet flagged it as a Class 4 logic disruption. By day's end, 6 border patrols had quarantined themselves in fear of contagious irrationality. Armin laughed. We're making them scared of feelings. No, Marcus said. We're making them scared of us. He stood at the viewport, watching the stars shift around them like predators in the dark. They killed Lillian, he whispered. Now they'll meet what she left behind. The Inhuman equation. The Zari hive node in Sector D, 44 convulsed. To human eyes, it was a sleek ring of obsidian hanging in space. To the Zari, it was a thought engine, a biological relay that linked every diplomat, admiral, and governor across 3-star systems. Now it pulsed with corrupted data, not just foreign, illogical. A single sound looped across the neural lattice. Lillian Moore's laughter. Inside their stolen ship, the Rook, Armin stared at his console, transfixed. "They're breaking formation," he whispered. "They can't stabilize consensus." Marcus stood behind him, arms crossed, face unreadable. Report. Their diplomatic AI went catatonic. Full systemic pause. One fleet flagged its own hive leader as emotionally compromised. Another committed mass self-termination. They think it's some kind of mimetic virus. Cora let out a low whistle. "We didn't even fire a shot." "We did," Marcus said. "We just aimed at their soul." The next phase was surgical. They struck black sites first, hidden relay nodes, storage silos, dissection labs. Each target had one thing in common: Lillian's name buried in its metadata. Her research, her voice, her memories. The Zari had copied her, piece by piece. It wasn't just an assassination, it was theft. At the third facility, Cora led a breach with cryocharges. Inside, they found what looked like a shrine, a transparent column filled with suspended neural tissue, faintly glowing. Next to it, a display panel pulsed with Terran text. Subject, Lillian Moore. Emotional architecture, incomprehensible. Suggest termination. Recombinant patterns infective. Cora turned to Marcus. They didn't just kill her. They tried to understand her. He stepped forward, removed a small data prism from his coat, and slid it into the console. "She'll understand them, too." Armin's virus uploaded in seconds. The display flickered, then began replaying every log Lillian ever recorded, over and over, directly into the Zari hive memory. Lillian would become their dreams. 3 days later, the HiveNets began sending distress calls to humans. Not as enemies, as interpreters. The Terran Alliance tried to bury the messages. Fabrications, they called them. Mimic traps. But Marcus knew better. Lillian's voice was doing what warships couldn't, unraveling them from within. Still, there was one target left, the primary cognition nexus. The Zari Queen Mind. An organ more than a leader, it pulsed with cold calculation from the hollowed center of a black dwarf star. No guns could reach it, but grief could. Scar stood alone in the Rook's hold, watching a projection of Lillian's face. He was Zari, but different. Smaller, less armored, genetically bred for diplomatic function. He had defected after the second strike, claiming he had once spoken with Lillian in private, that she had shown him kindness. "They think you're dead," he told the image softly, "but you're more alive than any of us." Marcus entered. "You sure you want to go through with this?" Scar nodded, mandibles tight. "Your signal won't reach the Queen directly. She's filtered by a lattice of logic guardians. But I can walk through their firewalls." Cora scoffed. "And not get roasted?" "I'm a defect," Scar said. "They already consider me broken. I'll just show them the crack." Marcus handed him the final transmission, a compressed neural loop of Lillian's last memory, her hand brushing a Zari's arm during peace talks. "No words, just contact." Scar took it. "I'm not doing this for you," he said. "I'm doing it for her." When he entered the Nexus chamber, the Zari did not strike. They simply watched, uncertain, flickering, confused by his presence. Scar walked into the neural cradle and triggered the upload. Lillian's memory washed across the room. It was nothing but a single act of empathy. But in the Zari consensus mind, that one moment fractured everything. The Queen Mind staggered. The Guardians collapsed. The algorithms of dominance and probability twisted in on themselves. And for the first time in their species' history, the Zari felt. Back aboard the Rook, Scar collapsed. Marcus caught him before he hit the deck. Armin stared at the feed. The Queen's in stasis. Every node's disconnected. "It worked," Scar rasped. "She showed me. We don't have to be monsters." Marcus looked down at the dying alien, then toward the viewport, toward a star system unraveling without a single shot fired. "No," he said, "but someone has to be. The monsters we make." The Zari homeworld hung in space like a cracked obsidian mirror, fractured but reflecting. Orbiting above, The Rook floated on stealth thrusters, silent and dark. Cora Vance stood in the weapons bay, arms folded, watching as drones finished loading the last payload. A memory core encoded with Lillian's voice, her neural patterns, her final recorded thought. Armin approached, holding a strange, fleshy device that pulsed faintly. "This is the last one," he said. "Once we drop it into their atmospheric relay, every hive node across the planet will hear her." Cora frowned. "Feels like a trick." "It is," Armin said, "but a kind one." She raised an eyebrow. He sighed. "Okay, no. It's surgical, psychological warfare. We're going to make them feel the cost of genocide in real time and let that grief unmake their decision systems." She smirked. "See, that's the Armin I trust." In the command deck, Marcus Moore stared at the display. The Zari hive world was quiet, too quiet. No warships, no broadcasts, only static. The Queen Mind silence had sent the species into a cultural freefall. Without logical consensus, the hives turned inward. Some began self-medicating on memory loops. Others froze in place, unable to compute decisions without collective certainty. But Marcus knew better. Stillness wasn't surrender. It was a trap. "Bring us lower," he ordered. "Keep scanners hot." Cora joined him, suited up, helmet under one arm. "They're waiting," she said. "I know. Think she'd be proud of this." Marcus didn't answer right away. "She wanted peace," he said. "But peace without justice is surrender." Cora gave a slow nod. "Then let's make it count." They descended into atmosphere at dusk, the sky bruised purple by the dying sun. Their dropship skimmed the upper towers of Hive City 1, once a geometric paradise of logic and order, now scarred by chaos. Zari bodies lay slumped in data cradles, refusing to disconnect. Others paced in endless loops, mouthing phrases Lillian had spoken. "Empathy," one drone repeated. "Kindness. Illogical. Illogical. Illig." They landed in a courtyard that had once hosted Interse PC summits. The banners still fluttered with Terran and Zari emblems, now tattered and blackened by fire. At the center stood a statue, Lillian, reconstructed by the Zari from scans and memory fragments. She smiled. Cora stared. Creepy. Marcus approached the base. An inscription had been burned into the stone in Terran standard. "She taught us the flaw in perfection." He reached into his coat and placed a small item at the statue's feet. A photo. Lillian, laughing in Yellowstone. A better memory than any weapon. But then the sky split open. A chittering roar echoed across the city as Zari enforcers swarmed from above, sleek, armored, wings buzzing like blades. Dozens. Hundreds. Marcus didn't flinch. "Cora, now." She jammed the data prism into the uplink console at the statue's base and slammed her fist against the activation rune. Above them, relay towers lit up. Across the planet, every Zari node blinked. Then came the voice. Lillian's voice. Gentle. Human. "I didn't come here to win. I came to understand you." The enforcers stopped mid-flight. "Even now, I hope you understand me." Some began to shudder. Others dropped from the sky, twitching. Their minds couldn't parse it. Compassion in the face of death. It wasn't war. It was a mirror. One enforcer landed before Marcus, shaking violently. He stepped forward. It raised a claw, but didn't strike. Instead, it dropped something. A data shard. Marcus caught it. The image projected was Lillian, not a scan. A memory. She was speaking with this enforcer, calmly, warmly. It wasn't an ambassadorial file. It was personal. She had saved him once, and he remembered. Now, in front of Marcus, the enforcer dropped to its knees. Around them, others followed suit, not in submission, in mourning. Back aboard the Rook, Armin monitored the spread. Every hive is broadcasting remorse indicators. They're rewriting the Queen Mind protocols voluntarily. Grief has become a shared state. Cora rubbed the back of her neck. "So that's it? They mourn and we go home." "No," Marcus said, entering. "We finish this." Armin blinked. "What's left?" Marcus held up the data shard. She spoke to them. Connected. But they buried it. She reached them, and they chose silence. Chose the knife. He looked out the viewport. We're going to make sure they never forget the cost of killing someone who tried to save them. The wake. The memory shard glowed faintly in Marcus's hand. He sat alone in the observation bay of the Rook, watching the once pristine hive world below swirl in a haze of grief and confusion. The enforcers no longer flew. The towers stood dark. The Zari were quiet, but not defeated. Grief had slowed them. It hadn't changed them. Not yet. Cora entered, silent. She didn't salute. No one had since Lillian died. They've gone still again, she said. Just processing. That's what predators do, Marcus replied. They lie in the grass. Wait for the pain to pass. Then strike. She leaned against the viewport. You said we weren't here for war. We weren't, he said. But survival isn't peace. It's endurance. And now they know we endure. He gathered the crew in the war room. Even Scar, gaunt and trembling, attended, his body struggling under the feedback from the Queen Mind's collapse. They tried to rewrite Lillian, Marcus began, tried to dissect her into a pattern of formula. And when they couldn't, they erased her. He dropped the shard on the table. She was more than a diplomat. She was a mirror, and they broke it. Armin shifted. So what now? We've destabilized an entire planetary culture with a voice recording. Do we pull out and watch them crumble from orbit? No, Marcus said, cold and final. We give them a gift. Cora blinked. You're serious? Marcus nodded. We show them the funeral. They broadcasted the wake globally. It began as silence. Then, slowly, Lillian's image filled the sky, reconstructed from her logs, her letters, her voice. No dramatics, no propaganda, just her, talking, laughing, teaching. Across the world, Zari emerged from hiding. Some stood in confusion. Others kneeled, claws trembling. A few tried to claw their auditory sensors out, but most didn't. Most listened. And when the last message played, her standing in a Terran garden, wind in her hair, saying, even in the dark, I still believe in reaching out. There was no applause, no response, just the sound of 1,000 logic systems going quiet. Not malfunctioning, just quiet. Scar lay in the med bay, sensors beeping faintly. Marcus sat beside him. You delivered the message, he said. You saved more of them than any of us ever could. Scar's mandibles fluttered weakly. Not saved, shaken. They are not human. They do not cry, but they remember. That's enough, Marcus said. No, Scar rasped. It's not. Because the next generation, those who hatch in her echo, they may remember too well. Grief is a virus, but so is vengeance. Marcus looked down. Then we leave them the cure. The final transmission from the Rook wasn't a threat. It was a file. A full open-source copy of Lillian's diplomatic algorithms, annotated in Zari logic frames. It was her work, what they stole, what they tried to erase but freely given. Marcus addressed the hive world one last time. You killed her because you feared her. Now we give you everything she left behind. He leaned into the camera. Use it. Learn. Change. He paused. But if you ever return to our world with blood on your claws, you won't meet diplomats. The screen cut to black. They left orbit in silence. No fanfare. No Terran Alliance welcome. Officially, the mission never happened. Unofficially, rumors spread fast. That a rogue crew brought down a civilization with a memory. That a dead woman's voice ended a war before it began. That somewhere out in the dark, a human diplomat still haunts the minds of her killers, whispering peace like a knife behind the ear. Back on Earth, Marcus visited Yellowstone. It was quiet, still green. He placed a new marker beside the old one. No name, no title, just a line. She reached where bullets couldn't. He stood for a while, then walked away. Behind him, the wind stirred the trees, soft and sad, almost like laughter,